All right, so welcome back to Undefining the Podcast, where we break free from old labels, rewrite our stories, and rediscover who we are. Each episode, we dive into personal journeys, creativity, and culture, always with a touch of humor, of course. I'm your host, Glo Butler, and today's guest is someone who knows a thing or two about redefining identity through comedy. Let's check it out. All right, you guys, join me in welcoming Kendra Dawsey. Kendra Dawsey is a New York City based stand up comedian, writer, and film nerd. They've opened for Michelle Buteau, Eddie Pepitone, and Finesse Mitchell. If you love a good mix of humor and horror, check out their Substack, Horror is Life. Ooh, tell me about it. I hope we get to hear some more about that in a second. All right. But with that being said, hi, Kendra. How are you doing?
Hi, I am
Hi.
doing good.
Yay.
I am, when I am not doing comedy
Mm-hmm.
or watching movies, I'm a
Mm-hmm.
tour guide. I had one tour today at the Statue of Liberty, and it was kind of cold, but now I'm home, and now I don't need to be cold anymore, which is nice.
Wow. So you do that. How long have you been doing like being a tour guide? Like what how'd you
About 3 years. I actually got started doing it when I was living in Boston.
mm-hmm.
Um, because I did a comedy slash history talk show with
Mm-hmm.
a organization there. And then they kind of were like, oh, I know this guy, he does the tours, it's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
So I started being a tour guide there, and then I moved to here.
Okay.
And I do a lot of tours all over New York. If you want to know random facts about Manhattan, I could tell you some.
I feel like you have
uh
a huge Rolodex, like it's not Rolodex. What is it called when you go into the library and they have like the little
oh
like
yeah, oh my god,
Gen Z wouldn't know what I'm talking about. You
I
know what
know
I
what you're
mean? Like
talking
the
about
little
though,
where
but
you
I
go in,
forgot the
like
name.
index. Maybe it's called like an index
Yeah.
or something like that. But yeah, that like I feel like you just have a bunch of information that you're just waiting to for the cue to like start talking about with your city. You're like, actually, you can be
Yeah,
like the quiet
I
one in the group, and then you go, hey, actually,
and I've always kind of been like that. I've
yeah,
always been well, actually, and I've been trying to tone it down. But being a tour
I love
guide,
that.
a lot of it is your job. Someone will be like, "Where is this?" And I'm like,
Mhm.
"Well, actually, you could get there." It's nice.
I want you to embrace who you are because this is what undefining is all about. You know what I mean? We're gonna dive more into it. All right. So I basically just want to talk about a little bit about your journey. Okay. So
Yeah.
comedy is often about observing life and breaking things down. What's something you've had to undefine about yourself over the years?
One thing I really had to undefine is what a career, what making money looks like.
Okay.
Um,
Mm.
Especially, I mean, I keep having to undefine that because the nature of comedy has changed so much from when I got started, which was Trump's first term, which is wild to think about. But now so much of it, so
Yeah.
much of it is through TikTok, through the internet, and I'm trying to be better, or at least be I'm trying to be better at engaging with social media, and
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of times stand-up comedians, but I think especially any stand-up comedian that's not some straight white guy,
Mm-hmm.
they will have a tendency to kind of talk themselves down or be like, oh,
Yeah.
I haven't done that much, or oh, I shouldn't reach out to them. And then
Yeah.
the few times where I've been able to shut that off and I'm like, hey, could I be on the show? People are like, yeah. It's not
Mm-hmm.
so or and me talking myself down also goes into how I use social media, or oh, should I even try TikTok? I mean, and
Mm-hmm.
I know social media in itself is another conversation, but
Yeah.
I think I think this year I'm kind of I should I when I first moved to this area, I think at first I was kind of let me try to make money by getting, more. I mean, tour guide isn't a conventional job, but it's not like comedy because you'll get paid each time you do it.
Yeah.
And now I'm I should branch out a little. I should try a little bit. And it's
Mm-hmm.
helpful also. It's helpful sometimes being married to a comedian because I see what she does.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, yeah, I could do that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's no, there's no reason I can't strive for the same thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, when I was younger, I was like, oh, I should try to get like a 9 to 5 and blah, blah, blah. But I think I was trying to do it because I felt like that was the path forward. And now I'm just like, oh, like it probably give me more money, but I also want time to like pursue my creative efforts. So yeah.
I think that, and maybe I don't know if you can agree, but like at times I just feel like, well, I think just knowing that when you even started doing comedy that you know, you just kind of have to detach from the whole money thing, because I remember when, like, now we can get paid from like tip jars and whatever. They'll come up with some creative way, right? And I'm not talking about the big shows where they actually like really pay you like that. You know what I mean? And but I'm talking about like the on average when you're going to like a show, like there's a variety of ways that you're going to get paid. And so, you know, if you focus so much on how much each show is going to add up to or whatever, it takes away like the creative part a little bit, because you're like, well, why am I doing this? I should be getting exposed. And that's how I felt in the beginning of my comedy career too. It's like, you know, I came up when like it was around I started comedy the year Patrice O'Neill died. And
oh wow,
that was like 2011. Yeah, that's so it was one of those where like, yeah, I immediately thought, you know, that I'm gonna be a Kevin Hart, you know, or like somebody that they're just gonna put on, you know, how they treat black comedians, where it's just one that can be on top, you know. So that's, I think that detaching from the meaning of money or how you define it or how you want to receive it is totally different when you're a creator. Because in life we weren't told make this into a business right away. You know what I mean? Comedy is kind of like, okay, we can, like you said, you're dating another comedian, so it's almost like they're same for me. You know, it's like you learn a lot from each other. You know, you learn a lot from like just things that, like, number one, you're two different styles, you know. And shout out to Madeline. Madeline is freaking dope. You guys gotta check out Madeline.
Thank you. Yeah, she's recording a special, which is actually, I think she will have recorded the special by the time this comes out. But you should listen to it. You should watch it and listen to it.
That's even perfect. Now you should definitely check it out. Once you hear this episode, go run and go check out and look up Madeline's special. What is the special going to be called?
I actually don't know if she knows yet.
Okay.
I will update you.
That's fair.
Just look up Madeline Murphy online and watch her special.
And then you're good. Right. It's all right. I didn't mean to elaborate on that question.
No, it's okay. It's all right.
But
we're workshopping.
Right, exactly. Going with the flow of it. So do you feel like comedy helped you redefine your identity, or did redefining yourself help shape your comedy?
Yeah, I think definitely comedy helped redefine my identity. Being someone who, I mean, I was always like kind of, I didn't try that hard being a theater kid, but like doing comedy, it kind of, I was like, oh, like you have to write, you have to like perform, you have to hone this craft. And it was like I think I had been craving doing something really creative for a lot of my life. And it was a way to put in that creative energy in a way that's like kind of immediate. And I mean, of course, I'm not saying like you write a set and it's great and then you're on TV. That never happens. But it's more of like, I think a lot of other creative forms takes a lot of people to work on, which it makes sense that, you know, that is important. Comedy is something where like, if you want to try it, you could write something and go to an open mic. You're probably not going to do well because no one does well on their open mic, but you kind of get the like, okay, I wrote this, I saw how the audience reacted, and you could do that like within, especially in New York City, because there's so many open nights. So I was craving that. I was in a sketch comedy group in college, but I like a lot of people had moved away, and I was like, I still want to do it, so I started doing that. But yeah, it has. I'm like, oh, like I am an entertainer. I like do things. I've gotten money from comedy. And I think what you said was right. Like it's comedy is underpaid. Even people who have been doing it for decades, who like have great writing credits, they there are so many people that should be paid more and so many that should be paid less. Comedy. So like it is one of those things where like you do it because you love it. It's not impossible to make some money off of it, but really like making long-term money off of it, you have to diversify. And that's why we have a lot of podcasts. Yours is a great podcast. There's also podcasts that are annoying and like randomly affect all of American politics.
Yeah.
But that's why we have so many like podcasts. That's why so many people are on TikTok. That's why, there's a lot of different paths comedians are taking. But I do love stand-up comedy. I was talking to my wife about this, how I also have had hopes of like kind of going into film, and that's something I'm pursuing. And I think there are stand-up comedians who have like written some films. I mean, like also people who have worked in comedy who direct, like Jordan Peele, I think is perhaps the director at everyone's like front, because he started in sketch, but even like I think his name is Niles Abston. He has like a short film that he's been promoting and like sending to festivals. And it's I don't know if things are even, I guess one thing that I've been trying to keep in mind as I'm like, okay, I want to do this other hard thing that I've like been nervous about is like things are only possible if you try. I just got to try to like do it makes more sense to try to do it than like be too scared to even take the first step. And there's so many films start with just like some person being like, hey, we should do this, and taking that energy and keeping it going is important.
Do you have a like, I guess you said you've been doing comedy for approximately like 8 years ish, 9 or something like that?
About 8,
about 8 years. And so where was that point in your comedy career so far? And I'll put it so far because we're still like discovering who we are. And and so where was there a point in your comedy career so far that you've been able to focus, like you were like, like this is okay, I should be more me, and who Kendra is? And was there like a moment, or not necessarily a moment, but maybe like there was a year or something, or a time where you were just like, okay, like maybe when you started doing comedy, you were trying to, some people try to play, especially being queer, non-binary, whatnot. Did you have a period where you're just, you were so focused on how people were viewing you and how they were seeing you, or the things that you were saying? And was there like just a moment where you're just like, you know what? I'm gonna do things differently. I don't feel comfortable doing it this way, but this is what I gotta tell people who I am. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think, I think starting comedy, I mean, I was like an out lesbian when I started.
Okay.
But I started in a scene that was really different from New York City, like Connecticut, which is a small enough state that the entire state's basically a comedy scene. There are some great people in Connecticut. There's also some annoying people. And there still was like kind of, I mean, there were people who were very supportive of me and like, we're like, we want, more voices from different people. But I think there still was some of the idea of like, oh, if, like, we shouldn't just book people because they're like Black or like a woman or this or that, as if, people weren't working hard all at the same mics. So I think especially my first years doing comedy, when I was like, I would just like get booked on shows and go to like wherever the fuck Connecticut, where like I was like, I've maybe heard of this town. I don't know, like, what was this town, red or blue in the last, like, who knows? I think at first I was like, oh, there's certain jokes I won't do in certain places. But eventually when I felt more just like myself, and when I like kind of understood my voice, and also hearing from other people that's like, you shouldn't change your material. Eventually I was like, okay, like these people may not like many aspects of my identity, but I have tried this joke in enough different places that I know it works, and I'll do that joke there and it works. And I think there was also some of that feeling of like, when I first started, of like me going into like Black rooms, because the comedy scene, comedy scene in New York is kind of segregated too, but especially in Connecticut. So, and I grew up in like the white suburbs. I know what I sound like and stuff. So like at first I was like, oh, should I try to like change myself? And I was like, and then I was like, no, like my cousins get me, they laugh they think I'm funny. I should just be myself, and and that is fine. Like, it's like I could you can still be yourself and like connect with different audiences. You don't need to change. So that's always helped me. And I think like now that I'm like older and I recently did some shows in like Montreal, Canada, and I was like, well, yeah, I'm an American. I was like, sorry for the tariff hullabaloo. I'm an American. I'm just a random, or like not random, but like, yeah.
Was that was during this whole tariff situation where we're losing our tariffs? Like,
we did not. Madeline was very sweet. She had a one-nighter at Vermont Comedy Club. And when she like kind of book shows like that, she'll like try to do, so she was like, Burlington, Vermont is not too far from Montreal. And I hadn't been to Montreal before, so she was like, let me try to get shows there, we'll hang out a little bit there. And then we planned this like months in advance, and then this week was the week where Trump was like, oh, we're gonna have loads of tariffs for like Canada. So I like would come into a room and I'd be like, I'm American, I'm so sorry, could someone like hide me? Like but like it was also but like also I mean, especially with every administration, honestly, being the rest US of, like our policy is wild, has always been wild. I feel like especially now, Trump will just say something and a large amount of people will be like, that doesn't even fucking make sense. And it doesn't, but it happens. And I'm like, I technically share the same citizenship with this man, and I didn't even ask to. Like
and you know, in other parts of the world, you know, it's almost like, I'm sorry, we didn't want to have to do this, but your president is trash. You know, and so I say that in a way where like, they almost feel sorry for us. You know what I mean? Because yes, which I'm perfectly fine with them hitting the red states if they're going to do some stuff like that, right? Because I'm just like, all right, red states, y'all couldn't get your people together to like get this so that we didn't have to be here right now. And so I just feel like a lot of times, and I'm just speaking in general, like I'm not saying that because I know all parts of the world is not the same, but I feel like in certain areas, like it's almost like they want to protect us, you know, if they do see us, they're like, yo, I'm sorry, you know. When I had a gig in Norway and like a traveling gig and stuff like that. That was back in 2019 or something. But when I was there, they just wanted to know so much because we were like the reality television for them, you know. And so it was, they felt so bad, and it was so interesting too because they really wanted to, I don't want to say like the Black perspective, but I guess they want to know what I'm experiencing. You know what I mean? And it wasn't in any type of uncomfortable way. It was just, it was an open discussion to just freely talk about how you felt. And they were so welcoming over there. I'm like, you know, I see like a Black person every other day, you know, but they were so kind and so sweet. And I think that people know what we go through, and like the other parts of the world is not as dangerous as, you know, like some people can go walk outside at night and be fine. You know what I mean? In an area where a lot of countries, they don't have to think about stuff like that. You know, there are things we have to think about where when you're like traveling, we're keeping that same mindset, and they're like, no, you don't have to do that here. You know? So I feel like in a way that there's some form of protection. I'm not speaking on these countries and saying that they're protecting us, so don't go there and like, you know, act the fool and stuff. Be like, no, we good. Like they love us. But I'm just saying that, like, I think in general, as a whole, they're feeling bad for the people who did try to fight to get a better outcome. Let's put it that way.
Definitely. I think my wife and I being in a gay couple, I think people were like, oh, I'm sorry. I think being of a marginalized race, people are like, oh, I'm sorry when you're in different places. And it's interesting you brought up people being interested in the Black experience. I did some study abroad in India, and the second time I was there it was like when Ferguson was popping off. And it was really interesting talking to my teachers at my language school, and those teachers were like more educated and blah blah blah, but even talking to them being like, oh, this isn't right, it seems like the cops just shot this kid because he was, you know, Black. The teachers were like, yeah, like it seems like the police aren't great in
Mm-hmm.
the US. And yet, like, I would log on Facebook and people are like, oh, well, they just blow, like,
Mm-hmm.
the blacks are ungrateful. And it was, and these people like far away were like, oh, that we get it. Like, we get why this
Yeah.
is happening.
Yeah.
And I guess like, I'll like, I think every country has issues with like racism, but the way they
Yeah.
manifest is different. And I think there's like some
Mm-hmm.
cases where like I'm almost surprised, or like not surprised, but it's like they're able to be like, oh yeah, like it makes sense black people are mad.
Mm-hmm.
But in America, that it that's turned into a whole culture war thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I uh traveling, people will feel bad for you. I did a joke in Montreal where it was like I said in French, like, I'm a poor American, like, help me escape, and people liked it.
I love that. I feel like that. I mean, because they get it, and it's almost like something that they're already thinking. I was like, I wonder, blink. It's like blink twice if you need me right now. And so I wanted to ask. I know you didn't. Well, I'm not sure if you performed there or not, but I know you and Madeline went to Italy. Was it Italy that you guys went
Yeah,
to?
we did.
How was that
Yeah.
experience? Because I know Madeline had some questions, and I wasn't sure
Yeah.
how your own experience went with that.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So we didn't perform. We went to Italy because Madeline's grandfather was born there. This was a
Mm-hmm.
grandfather. He was born like he came through Ellis Island like when he was 2 years old. But
Mm-hmm.
he was born there, and we kind of wanted to see his ancestral or her ancestral homeland.
Mm-hmm.
So he went with her mother, who is the descendant of this grandfather. My wife is good at watching TikTok, so she like was trying to do some research to be like, oh, like how are black women like treated in Italy, like what could we expect, especially as like an interracial gay couple.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she saw a lot of black women be like, oh, like they're rude or like they're not
Mm-hmm.
nice.
I've heard that. Yeah.
um yeah, and I think that's probably like, so we went to this town. We weren't really in like a huge tourist spot like Rome or like Venice. We were in
Mm-hmm.
this tiny ass town that does get tourists, but we were in the off season, and most of the tourists they get tend to be European and not American.
Mm-hmm.
So there were some Italian ladies that told us to like speak less loud at a restaurant, and we were like Italians are known for being fucking loud. Like really, like
Right.
we're the ones being
Yeah. No, I get.
but I
I know what they were trying to do or say. They just something was bothering them, and they that was the first thing that could come to mind. So it's probably just it. We deal with that.
yeah.
Right.
Um but yeah, I but on the whole I did still have like a nice time, and I think like even though again, not saying all of Italy is like, oh, like no one's there's like there's definitely racism, but I think
Yeah.
like when people met me, they were like they were like curious about me, but not in a like a exotifying or like or like weird way.
Mm-hmm.
It was in like, hey, like where are you from, like what are you doing here, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And I think some of that interest also went to my wife and my mother-in-law, even
Mm-hmm.
though they pass as Italian and people would speak to them in Italian, they'd be like, sorry, we don't know that.
Mm-hmm.
But once they like talked a little bit more, they were like, hey, so this town is super small, what made you interested in it? And then they were able to
Mm-hmm.
say like, hey, like my grandfather grew up this, or like was born in this area, we just wanted to see it.
Mm-hmm.
So I did like it. I did really. There are some parts of it I appreciated. Also, the food there is good and cheap, which is
Cheap. I wouldn't have expected that. I thought it was kind of. I mean, I don't
you would.
know what I would expect, but I just feel like things aren't. I'm fully aware that like American dollars are, I guess, the equivalent is a lot more. Where our money is worth more, but going there, I wasn't sure. There's some like Paris. I feel like you would
Yeah,
still be spending like you're spending in New York. So that's why I
yeah.
feel like it's yeah, that would be
No,
another
that's
question.
a
Mm-hmm.
no, that's a good point. But I guess like food. I mean, it compared to here, it's affordable. Like I would get like a little coffee each day and like a croissant, and it was like less than €5 for both of those together. And then like the coffee wouldn't make my stomach hurt or anything. Like it was
Yeah.
like Madeline's stomach also felt fine. So it's just like, oh. And then they also have a lot of like in this one small town we were in, they'll have like people bring a ton of food on a cart and then just like sell it in the town square. I guess kind of like a one person farmers market, but
That's funny.
yeah. And then like I went over to one just because I was curious and I saw like what she was selling, and the woman was just like manja manja and like literally giving me things and being like, it's two. And I'm like, okay.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, but yeah, the food was really good. We had like sun-dried tomatoes. They tasted so good. Uh Wine is cheap. Listen, I not again, Italy. Some of them are rude, but the food is good. I will say they went off.
The wine isn't the one. A lot of times the wine is probably cheap because it's made there, right?
I think it's that. I think
that's because when I was just passing through. It was a connecting flight from Amsterdam to Norway, and like in Amsterdam, Heineken here for one bottle. Like go to a bar, it's like I don't know, like $8 or $9, right?
Yeah.
In Amsterdam airport, $3. Isn't that insane?
Yeah.
Like I was just like, give me a 6-pack.
Like, could I take these for the flight? Could I have 6 of these?
And the coffee, I would just say that because same thing with Norway, same coffee was incredible. But we have to remember that American coffee is trash. The beans are terrible. Even Starbucks coffee is not good, and so a lot of times you go there, a lot of people get their coffee beans from Ethiopia, different farms, but also they're made out of cranberry, where like we don't know where and you can tell the difference because you don't need to add creamer or any sugar to it, and they have coffee every other place around the world. They have coffee as like a, instead of going out for a glass of wine. I mean, anytime you meet with somebody, you're grabbing coffee, so like you don't have that crash at the end of the day, and stuff like that. But yeah, the coffee that we have here is unfortunately not good at all, and even the places that we're going to buy coffee is not good. So going someplace else and we're like, the coffee's really good. I was like, because that's what we should be drinking.
No, the food in the US, I mean, I know this is a comedy podcast and I keep being like, but
no, you're good.
The food in the US is unfortunately usually not good. It is, and it's not, I don't think it's most people's fault. But like our food is just weird. I don't know what it's
processed. It's like processed. Steroids, and it's like it's not good.
We add sugar to random stuff.
Exactly.
Like
that's why we're all dead. It's not funny.
No, I mean, we're not doing great for many reasons. One is like our food isn't great. And then like I worked at an environmental education place, and one of my old coworkers had this joke that it's like if you work there long enough, you start to believe the like big corn conspiracy. But it's true, the corn industry, we have too much corn. And we just started putting it like using high fructose corn syrup, which is like just another form of sugar. And we could probably be eating less. I'm not saying no one should ever have sugar ever, but like
we do need to probably the portions. We could have less. We eat a lot. And this was, and I'm not pointing, I'm just using this as an example. Like I was told this a long time ago, years ago. But there are some facts to it. Like say, for example, places like in Asia, like they number one, eat very small dishes, and then everything is very healthy. Everything is natural, whatever. But it's like when they move to the US and they see how and they start eating that same way, that's why you see them get bigger, or you see anybody get bigger who doesn't eat. You could be from Africa, you know what I mean? And they move here and all of a sudden they gain all this weight because all of our food, even before you cook it, it's already processed and gross and probably has a bunch of stuff inside of it. You know what I mean? This is not, and I know I could be watching like What the Health and all this other stuff, but honestly, like I told my mom, I was like, I don't want to watch nothing that's going to make me not want to eat my food. You know what I mean? But I am smart about it. I'm a cleaner eater, but even when I'm eating clean, unless I walk out on a farm and grab some like fruits and veggies and stuff, I feel like whatever I eat, even when it's healthy, all they have to smack is organic on the cover. All they have to do is smack like okay, if it's vegan, it's vegan, but half this time when you eat vegan cheese, it's disgusting, you know? So it's like
Yeah.
finding that balance. And I'm not, no shade to like vegetarians, because there are amazing dishes when you get creative with it. But, and I would even eat over having meat. But in this country, you know, that's why anybody who like lives outside the country, if you're listening to this, if you ever move to the US, just know you're going to gain a ton of weight.
Or like maybe if you don't gain weight, you're gonna be like, oh, my stomach hurts, or like I have these
Yeah.
new like
Yeah.
there's I don't know,
You're gonna have some time adjusting to that.
there's
You know what
gonna
I
be
mean?
yeah God, any again, I'm sorry, this is a comedy podcast, but my like public health background's coming up. Just
No,
like the
it's
food.
funny. No, this
um
is the part. It's like it's a comedic tone, but I want to like talk about real stuff. You know what I mean?
yeah,
I want to be able to make jokes and or tease and make fun of certain things, because it's all out of humor, and we got to laugh instead of crying through it all. Like this could be a very sad conversation right now. Like this could be like therapy.
yeah.
Like before I started recording, you guys, like this was a deep conversation. No, it wasn't. But this goes into laughter being healing, you know, and
Yeah.
you know, grateful for the segue that we just had just right now. But has humor ever basically got you through a lot of like situations? Like for example, there was one time where I won't say a breakup or anything like that, but I had an issue with something and I had to get on stage right after it. And so I was going to talk about it. And because it was so natural and it came fresh, and that was the first time I was talking about it, that it was amazing on stage. You know, I didn't really talk about it much more because I was like, this isn't a topic. I'm not going to give somebody, you know, the privilege of being able to be in my set. But I realized like, oh, I got over it like after doing that, you know, and that was something a long time ago, something stupid when I look back at it. But have you ever, and I'm sure yours could be a lot darker than this, but like, have you ever been through a moment where like you felt like comedy kind of saved you in a way?
Yeah. I think, I mean, yeah, I feel like there's like a joke with some comedians where it's like we're all sad or have some sort of mental health issue. I think there have been a lot of times, even beyond like mental health stuff, where, you know, things were just like hard, where it did help me get through. And I remember there was like one summer where it really did feel like my life exploded for like a few reasons.
Mm.
Like I had like a relationship breakup and then a friend breakup, like one after the other.
Oh, that's rough.
And I like I was like had to find housing really soon, and like it and
Mm.
like there was something weird with my mom, and it was just intense. And I remember I was telling friends about it, and I was like, this is so much has happened in such a small amount of time, that when I was
Mm-hmm.
telling them about it, I wasn't even sad. I was just like, isn't this wild? Like all of this
Mm-hmm.
happened to me. Haven't processed it yet, but if you want to laugh at some points. And
Yeah.
yeah, I was, and yeah, that I think like laughing about it a little bit did help me. And then also like I think there was like a day where I like only slept 2 hours, and then my dad helped me move into my like new apartment and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um but yeah, it was like it was a very intense time. And I remember I like did feel kind of like sad because it felt like my like social net was kind of gone for a little bit. And I would like watch like sitcoms like
Mm-hmm.
by myself. There were a few times where I was like, oh, like I wish there was another person, but I was also like I kind of like survived. Like um laughter helped me kind of survive through that hard moment. And
Yeah.
finding joy in hard moments is important. It kind of,
Yeah.
you know, it's not, it may not be the actual like fight, but it does give you something worth like
Yeah.
fighting for,
Mm-hmm.
which I try to remember.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah,
I,
that
I,
was,
I it's yeah, and those are the moments that matter the most, no matter like how big or small. But it's the little ones where we're like, this isn't a big deal, you know. This is, I know it's so stupid, and when you look back, you're like, no, you were going. That's a serious situation to go through, but it's kind of like, all right, that moment where you realize like a lot of times we just got to take things to, when we take things to the stage, it's almost like, all right, you guys are my therapist, like you guys are cheaper than therapy, you know. I
yeah,
love hearing comics say that, because it's so true. There's moments like where we're just like, hey, because I've seen a comedian talk about good times and having money and stuff like that, and it didn't go over well. He was amazing because he was a great comedian, but he would always talk about, look what I got. That was his style of comedy. And
Yeah.
so it kind of, I was like, people want to know, people want to see you go through some stuff. People want to see you miserable a little bit. They want to see you a little depressed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Because it's also a
Trauma
little bit
bond.
relatable. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
relatable. It's more relatable for someone to be like, "Man, I'm broke," than like, "Yeah, I have so much." Like, who has a lot of money right now? Who are like, is your dad rich? Like, does he have a blue Wikipedia link? Like, what?
Yeah.
Um, like, so when comedy kind of becomes like kind of more braggy, and I think if you like follow a lot of famous comedians' trajectories,
Mm-hmm.
like I think you, I mean, I'm not like I'm
Yeah.
not like, wow, like amazing comic Ellen DeGeneres, but
Yeah.
I think her like latest special, a lot of people are like, she's just whining that people don't like her in her fancy like mansion. That's not that's
Yeah.
not relatable.
Mm-hmm.
It's more relatable, is I think, especially like kind of nowadays, and the feeling that a lot of
Yeah.
millennials have with our news headlines. It's more relatable to be miserable and like to kind of laugh about the like wild things going
Mm-hmm.
on,
Yeah.
rather than being like, oh, like my life is great.
Right,
No one wants
right.
to hear
Nobody,
that.
right, exactly. You take your positive affirmations and mantras off the stage, all right? You keep that away from me, all
Exactly.
right? Like comedy's about sadness. That's what, because honestly, like every comedian out there, trust me, they have something dark that they have, and that's honestly one of our, that's what probably drives us and makes us so creative, because like I would just say that when I'm happy, even when I'm in a happy relationship, I'm like, man, it's hard to write right now. It really is. It really is for me. When I'm happy, I'm like, ugh, what am I supposed to write about? Like, I need to be writing about the rough stuff. And so I'll find little things to talk about, or things from my past. But it's true. It's like you need some little something to like be like, oh yeah, and by the way, let's talk about this, you know?
Yeah.
Um, but one thing I noticed in like comedians that are bigger, or when I say bigger, I mean like on Netflix, where they have their Netflix specials, like say for example Michelle Buteau, right, one of my favorite comedians out there, and who just dropped a special
Mm-hmm.
a couple months ago, or maybe like a month ago. But anyway, so I noticed that a lot of times with a lot of comedians, after they've had so much fame, when they get on stage, they'll come out with a special and they'll just talk about like how famous, like, they'll talk about their famous stories, and nobody can really relate anymore after that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like people enjoyed when comedians were talking about, oh, the struggle with their kids, or the struggle with this and that. And they can talk about the struggle with their kids at any moment, but it's like, oh, well, getting a job or keeping a job, or, these are topics that like really drive people. People be like, tell me about it. Like, I'm just a regular person and I'm going through it. They want to hear that on stage, but except they want a punchline to make them happy. um
Yeah.
you feel like working alongside these comedians that you've opened for, do you think that you've evolved as a comedian based off of like those experiences? Did you, and like what exactly do you feel like you learned from working with these
Yeah.
comedians? Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they're all the people that you listed, which are like some of the few famous people I've worked with. They're all really
Mm-hmm.
nice. Very sweet comics. I've learned that I feel like comedy is probably stand-up comedy is probably the one thing, or one of the few entertainment careers where you could be in it and not get a big head. Of course, you could be in it and get a big head. But there's also like Eddie Pepitone is just a sweet guy, and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, you were the voice of like cartoons I watched growing up. He's just like very humble, sweet guy.
Yeah.
Um, he was like, oh, great stuff tonight. Michelle Buteau, also very sweet.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, a lot of these, and a lot, even if they like make all their, I guess one thing I will say, with stand-up comedy, and this is probably true of like more careers now, like Instagram influencer,
Mm-hmm.
uh, it may seem like someone has a lot of money because they're
Mm-hmm.
famous, but that's not necessarily true.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not, I mean, obviously not saying like, oh, like these people are broke, but I think in this day and age, people would be surprised where like there's some people where their faces are a lot of places, but they may not necessarily have a lot of money in their bank, or they're like might be waiting on checks from, and also some institutions take so long to pay you. I will say that colleges so long. So like
Jeez. And there's a lot of people who go on like full on like tours for months at a time for college tours too. It's crazy.
Yeah. And like you do get the money, but sometimes it comes later than when you want, or like later than what they said in the contract. But yeah, there's I that's one thing I've learned, and I think it's like had kind of helped me wrap my head around, because I think there's like people who I really admired their writing, I really admired their like kind of like set, like all the hard work they do, and then I meet them, or like we're on the same show and I'm like, oh, we're all just people trying to do comedy, and they're like they like they're more like maybe business savvy about it, but it's not like they're like it's not like they're like, oh, like they just are naturally talented and someone gave them these shows. It's like it's comedy basically isn't a meritocracy at all, right? Not in a single way. It's literally like you have to ask for things. You do have to work hard, but like it helps to be more like sometimes more so than being funny, even though you should try to be funny. You also should be nice. People don't want to work with dicks for the most part.
Right.
And you just have to like put yourself out there and like ask if you could do things, and like try like keep sending emails, keep asking if you could be on shows, reach out, like don't be afraid to unfortunately network.
Like, networking, but being a little vulnerable, right? Like it sounds like you gotta, because a lot of times as artists we get in our heads and we're like, no, people should be reaching out to us, and that's one thing I can even struggle with, is just being like, because I'm so used to like people reaching out. I mean, that's not something, trust me, it's not that big, but I'm just saying that like I'm on people's roster, after you become a comedian, after a while, you just become a part of people's roster. So they always ask you, and so I was so used to that like the past year or two, things slow down because, there's a lot of new comedians, or there's a lot of like people who,
there's a lot of new people running shows.
So you got to also always stay on top, of that. What's one misconception about being a queer comedian that you wish people would stop assuming?
Oh, definitely. I think all of these people on various social media platforms, especially like Instagram and X, I think they like they're like, oh, this person's only funny, or like not only funny, they only get booked because they're queer, or that like part. Because they're like black, or like because they're part of a marginalized group. And there was one post in this black comedians group where like this man, I'm not going to say his name because I don't want to call him out his name. That's okay. But he was like, oh, like woman, like you can't just get booked being a minority, but he spelled like minority wrong, which like I don't want to make fun of people's spelling and grammar, but like, it was
right. He's like, I'm not here to deflect or anything, but you got to know what you're talking about.
Hit spell check, sweetie, if you want to make a point. But he said like MA at like minority. But a lot of people will think that like if you are not a straight white guy, the only reason you get booked is because you're in those categories. Exactly. And if that were true, we would have never had Joe Rogan. Like I think unfortunately the media discourse around entertainment has been like really powered by like fucking like troglodytes who get mad if they see someone who like looks not entirely white on their TV screens, and they're like, surely this person must only be here, like they're like, people of color cannot be talented and can't have, and that's not the way it has ever worked. That's not the way it works now, right? If you see someone on your TV, they have worked very hard. If you see someone even on your Instagram, even if you don't think their like crowd work clip is like that impressive, and like sometimes they aren't, but they did work hard, they like reach out, they hug, like it's not just random it's not like we find a Black lady on the street and we're like, put her in a comedy club. That does not happen.
Yeah.
So it's like really, and like I think that's also one thing is like people are like, oh, I don't think that's funny. And it's like, okay, you're one person, obviously enough, like whatever. But like you don't have to think Tiffany Haddish is funny, but she was in her car, like like living out of her car, like doing shows. And like some people like, but she was like, it's not like they found her on the street. Like she was doing comedy that you may not have liked for like years before she like got in front of the TVs and everything. So yeah, I it's a point that comes up so much, especially if you're on that terrible site Twitter nowadays, because it's like literally the Nazi site, but it comes up so much. And it like whenever I hear someone say it, it's just like you are so out of touch with how these things work. Like you don't know how these you don't know how society works. But I think it's easier for people to be like, surely only people who are of my race and my gender and my like sexuality are the ones with talent, because that means I'm inherently talented even though I am not special at all.
Right.
So there's that. Also like I feel like so many, like there's been so many like well-known lesbian comics, well-known queer comics. Richard Pryor sucked a dick before, like it's documented.
No, he said that. Yeah, he definitely said that.
Said that.
I think it's the special on Sunset or something that he has out. But because he used to smoke, like when he did crack, like there's a lot of things you do for crack, you know. But and the set is really funny. Y'all should go back and listen to that. But
listen to it. Yeah. And I think there's also the idea where it's like, oh, there's like woke or not woke comics. I mean, woke actually means like a Black person or like, you know, no, like sometimes there's parts of me that's like, maybe white people should not know certain things, because now I have to hear like a senator say the word woke. I'm just like, if only we banned them from saying that word.
I'm ready for the whole like woke movement. And just because it's something that people can use and not feel, and they know it's not offensive, but I feel like it can almost be used against you in like a certain tone. I know how things sound with certain tones. And so when they say woke, or if you don't even know what you're talking about, I just, at a certain point after the whole woke movement happened, grateful for it. But as far as like the usage of the word, we could afford to go, hey, why don't we just talk about being in the know about things or diversity? Let's make the sentence longer or something. Like, because people like, it doesn't, I don't really know what to call it, but it's like,
white people appropriated the term and now they use it to like say the N-word when
that's how I feel about it. Yeah, exactly. It's just like another way of just being like, oh yeah, we woke. And it's like making fun of something that it wasn't meant to just be using it so freely like that. Like, oh
yeah, you know? God. So, but yeah, no, that all of this is basically there's so many people on the internet are dumb. That's what one thing I want people listening to. There might be some like even in like film criticism now, it's just some guy on YouTube being like, oh, like it's woke because there's like gay people, and it's like, shut up, like read a fucking book. But again, another time for another.
Exactly. I was like, we can do like a whole full hour on this. All right, so we're gonna go into our rapid fire game. Okay, it's called What's the Punchline? All right, this is gonna be fun. There's no rules to this. All right, well, I'll just explain what I'm gonna do. I'll say a setup, and you're gonna finish with your best, worst, or weirdest punchline. All right. No pressure. This is all fun. You don't have to be anything. All right. All right. So let's see. It's only going to be like less than 5 minutes. Like we're going to just go through this. Let's see here. A queer comic walks into a bar, and this is so generic.
Oh man, there's so many different ways I could go through this. Queer comic walks into the bar, sees like their polycule, their ex-polycule across the room. That's probably probably most
I
likely for
love
broken
that.
advice.
Exactly. All right.
Yeah.
And perfect, Kendra. Thank you. And another one, the worst advice I ever got was
Should I go with like real? Um, like actual bad advice I got.
like, for example, you should smile more, or something like that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think someone did say like, or like, oh, you should like take off your glasses or whatever. But I didn't have contacts at the time, so I'm like, oh, I won't be able to
It's
see.
like that. You're like, that's not the way this works.
Like I
you know,
you'll see my eyes, but I won't see
right,
you at
right.
all.
And a lot of people when they take their glasses off, like their eyes just kind of like wonder because they're trying to focus on something. And
Yeah, no, I squint like a I'm
yeah.
like a yeah.
You're like, this is what you want. It's not funny. Sorry,
Exactly.
I didn't mean to make fun because I don't wear glasses,
No,
so I shouldn't say
no, you could
jokes.
make fun.
Okay,
It's not you're I'm not gonna cancel you. No, people
thank you.
yeah, I think there's definitely been a lot of comments where it's like people have said, "Oh, you should try to dress more like this." And I'm like, I dress like a lesbian because I am a lesbian. I'm not fashion forward. Like if I ever have a Netflix special, I will try to stun on hoes, but like what you see is what you get. No one's out here getting booked because of their titties, but especially not me. Like you know
Yeah,
that.
yeah, that's so funny. Oh yeah, and I'm gonna walk into the next one. All right, so the last
Okay.
one is if my comedy career had a theme song, it would be. I feel like everybody has something on this.
um hmm. I
And I don't care if I don't
my
know the song. Don't worry about that because there's a lot of
no,
like,
it's okay. My first thought was "Break Your My Soul" by Beyonce because
mm,
sometimes comedy does want to
oh
break you.
yeah,
I also there's one song that I used to like ask people to put on as I was walking out. It's called "Erase You" by ESG. This like
ooh,
black and brown like f- kind of post funk band. They're really cool.
I like
But the
that.
song is just about how like men are annoying. So
Oh, that's fair. I can listen to that at least like once or twice a day, definitely. Like, and I don't even see men every single day in my life, so then I
but
can listen to
sometimes
that.
when you there's some great men out there, hashtag not all men, but some are annoying, and I think we
Mm-mm.
should be able to say that. So listen to Erase You, ESG, fun song.
Awesome. Thank you, Kendra, so much. That was fun. That was fun. I was saying
Thank
there
you.
wasn't
Yeah.
any rules to that. There was just whatever came to mind first. And that's the
Yeah.
best part about that. All right. So I basically now that's that kind of wraps up our the segments and the questions and all the fun stuff of the podcast. So, but before we go, in addition to plugging your Substack, plugging your
Yeah.
Substack, horror is life, real life. You can repeat
Yeah.
this. But
Socials everywhere are bossy. There's an underscore and then my last name, DWSEY. That being said, if you search Kendra Dawsey, there's three of us. I think we're all Black women, but only one's a comedian. I'm the
okay.
one that's a comedian. There's three of us in the United States. I have so I have an Instagram. That's where I usually post my shows. I have my I'll be opening for my wife and her comedy special is coming out on through Comedy Dynamics, so watch out for that.
Oh, dope. Nice.
It should be out in June. The more you watch it, we pool our income, so the more I will
There
also
you
get
go.
money.
Pays the
And my wife is
bills.
it
Yep.
pays the bills. I have a Substack because I am a horror nerd called Horror is Real Life. I last wrote to it in September, but I will have written to it by the time this comes out. So check it out.
Beautiful.
I write about comedy. I try to have like also, I think it's hard for me not to write in a comedic voice. But yeah, go to my Instagram. I used to have a website. I might again. If I do, it's kendradawsey.com. And yeah, just watch out for me. I might be on
Beautiful.
different things. I have one thing on Stories for the Stage, which is through it's through a few different things. If you search it, you could watch my video. I'm also on Kevin Hart's um, LOL network through Lift Comics, so you could watch that. Those were filmed a little bit ago, but they'll always be on the internet.
Nice. Thank you so much, Kendra, and thank you for stopping
Thank
by
you.
and hanging with me
Of
for a little
course.
bit.
All right, and that's a wrap on this episode of Undefining with the hilarious and insightful Kendra Dawsey. From navigating identity through comedy to jet setting internationally while still keeping it funny, Kendra reminded us that laughter can be both a survival tool and a source of self discovery. Whether it's on stage or in conversation, they continue to break molds and invite us to rethink how we show up in the world, one punchline at a time. And if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow Undefining wherever you listen to podcasts, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. And if you want to support this work, you can find us on Buy Me a Coffee. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Undefining Podcast. Silly there for behind the scenes content and guest updates. Thanks again for tuning in, and remember, it's never too late to laugh your way through the process of becoming. See you later. Undefining.